everyone, and welcome back. Today, we are diving into one of the most chaotic and honestly, one of the most creative periods in modern history. We're talking about the years right after World War II, a time when the world as we knew it was basically shattered and a new one had to be built from the ground up. So, to really get a handle on this, I want you to picture something. Think of the world in 1945 as this grand old estate, but now it's been completely devastated by a fire. The buildings are rubble, the grounds are scorched, the old owners are gone. Everything, and I mean everything, is about to change. And when I say devastated, the scale of it is it's hard to even wrap your head around. Across Europe and Asia, you had entire cities just wiped off the map, economies in total collapse, and millions upon millions of people homeless, starving, and deeply traumatized by what they had just lived through. And beyond the rubble and the ruin, there was this immense human trauma. This number you're seeing, 1.9 million, that's the estimated number of women who were raped by Red Army soldiers just in Germany as the war was ending. It is a horrifying statistic that reminds us of the profound personal suffering that was everywhere. So, the big question is, who's going to take over the shattered estates? Well, out of all that wreckage, two new global powers stepped forward, the United States and the Soviet Union. They were, without a doubt, the new owners. The problem? They had completely opposite ideas for how to rebuild the place. So, what's their first move? Well, they basically built a giant wall right down the middle of the property. This became known as the Iron Curtain. It's a phrase that perfectly captures this new reality, a hard ideological barrier splitting Europe in two. It became the single most defining feature of this new world. Now, with the estate divided, each of the new owners starts drawing up their competing blueprints for the future. On one side, you have the US with a policy of containment. The goal was to basically throw money and military aid at any country that might fall to communism. On the other side, the Soviets were all about expansion, tightening their grip on Eastern Europe and helping communist parties gain power wherever they could. And this wasn't some abstract political game. No, this had immediate, devastating real-world consequences. These policies literally ripped entire nations in two. Germany was partitioned into a West and an East, a division that would scar the continent for decades. And over in Asia, Korea was sliced in half at the 38th parallel, a move that led directly to a brutal war. But okay, while this huge rivalry was just getting started, something else was happening, something, a bit more hopeful. Leaders from around the world knew they had to write a new rulebook for the estate, one that could hopefully prevent this kind of global catastrophe from ever happening again. And this effort led to a truly revolutionary idea in international law, something that would fundamentally change how we think about justice and accountability on a global scale. Because for the first time in human history, the world came up with the concept of crimes against humanity. This was a game changer. It meant that individuals, not just faceless governments, could be put on trial for horrific acts. The old excuse, oh, I was just following orders? Yeah, that wasn't going to fly anymore. And this wasn't just some theory they wrote down on paper. No way. They put this new legal code to the test immediately. At the Nuremberg trials, an international court prosecuted 22 of the highest-ranking Nazi leaders. It set a powerful new precedent. No matter how powerful you are not above the law. And the new rulebook just kept getting bigger. A couple of years later, in 1948, the new United Nations adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This document laid out, for the first time, a common global standard for how every single person on Earth should be treated. It was a benchmark for dignity we're still trying to live up to. So while the two superpowers are drawing new lines on the map itself was changing in another massive way. The old European empires, they were crumbling. To go back to our analogy, you could say the longtime tenants of the estate were finally leaving to go build their own houses. And the speed of this change was just breathtaking. I mean, look at this. The Philippines in 46, then India and Pakistan a year later, Indonesia in 49. Between 1945 and 1960, something like 36 new countries popped up in Asia and Africa. The world map was being completely redrawn, and the age of colonialism was coming to a close. So what about the old empires? Well, they had to adapt. Take Britain, for example. It came out of the war nearly bankrupt, so it turned its focus inward. They built this huge welfare state, including their beloved National Health Service, the NHS. It was this moment of incredible domestic hope, a vision for a better society. But that hope at home was a sharp contrast to the harsh reality on the world stage. Just a few years later, the 1956 Suez Crisis was a total global humiliation for Britain. It was the moment everyone realized, yep, the old landlord is no longer a superpower on this estate. The age of empire was well and truly over. But while all of this drama was playing out in the open, new nations, new rules, new rivalries, there was a secret and pretty cynical race going on down in the basement of our estate. Both of the new owners were desperate for a technological advantage, and, well, they were willing to make some very dark deals to get it. And this is where you find one of the deepest ironies of the whole era. While one group of Germans was being tried for war crimes upstairs at Nuremberg, another group was being secretly recruited down in the basement. It's true. Both the US and the Soviets hired thousands of former Nazi scientists, the very people who had just helped design the weapons that destroyed the old world, to come build the arsenals for the new one. So, as we start to pull all these different threads together, what do we have? What kind of world did these architects actually build? It was a world of shocking contradictions. You had immense progress right alongside immense peril. You had inspiring hope mixed with deep, deep fear. It was a truly divided legacy. I mean, on the one hand, the recovery was just astonishing. The US economy was an absolute powerhouse, producing half of the world's entire industrial output. And by the late 50s, the countries that had been totally defeated, West Germany and Japan, were having what people called economic miracles. Their production levels actually doubled what they had been before the war started. But this rapid rebuilding came with a hidden price tag. Nobody knew what to do with all the old weapons, so an estimated 1 million metric tons of chemical weapons were just dumped into the world's oceans. It's this toxic secret that's still down there, a threat even today. Which leaves us with one final big question. When you look at it all, the divided nations, the nuclear standoff, the moral compromises, you have to ask, did the architects of this post-war era really build a new, safer world? Or did they just design a much more sophisticated, much more dangerous blueprint for the next conflict?